Welcome back, everybody, to the KC Sports Report. I'm your host, Michael Darcy, and today I have the pleasure to be joined by my good friend, Josh Fan of ShowMeFootball.com and ArrowheadAddict.com. And together we're going to break down if the Kansas City Chiefs can slow down the Philadelphia Eagles pass rush. One of the biggest storylines heading into Super Bowl 57 is, can the Chiefs slow down a Philadelphia Eagles pass rush that was widely regarded as the best in the NFL? The Eagles had 4 guys on that defensive line that got over 10 sacks. I mean, they're just filled with monsters. Hassan Reddick, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave. They got some absolute dudes on that defensive line. And Josh, I really think that this game is going to be won or lost in the trenches. So what are your initial thoughts? Do you think the Chiefs' offensive line can rise to the challenge and kind of slow down and minimize the damage? Or could we see maybe a repeat of 2020 Super Bowl?
God, I hope not. That would be bad for the Chiefs' offensive line. But, I agree with you that this game would probably be won in the trenches like most football games, but especially this one just because the line play on both sides is just so strong. It's going to be really interesting to see who comes out on top. But I am worried about the Eagles' pass rush. I know you mentioned, maybe talking about what we're most afraid of in this game from a Chiefs perspective, and it's got to be the Eagles pass rush. I think that was both of our answers. And I mean, you mentioned how they have 4 guys with double-digit sacks this year, which is just unheard of. And you still got guys like Fletcher Cox and Ndamukong Suh and Robert Quinn just kicking it in the background. It's just insane, the amount of talent and the amount of depth that they have. I think the Chiefs' offensive line can stop this Eagles pass rush. It's a tall task, yes, but they can do it. The Chiefs were tied 3rd in the league this year in sacks allowed. And they're really good when it comes to pass block win rate. I'm confident in their interior 3, which is Joe Thuney, Creed Humphrey, and Trey Smith. I really like the Eagles defensive tackles, though, and especially Javon Hargrave. I think that guy's really good. I would actually love him on the Chiefs, but I don't think that's going to happen. I know he's a free agent this offseason, though. But I think he'll get some pressure, but I'm confident in the Chiefs' interior 3. The tackles, however, is where you have to be a little bit worried. And Andrew Wiley and Orlando Brown have actually been pretty good this postseason for the most part, especially in pass blocking. But they've always had trouble with, of course, the speed rushers. And the Eagles definitely have speed on the edge. Hassan Reddick, who led the Eagles in sacks this year with 16 sacks. He is a guy that wins the speed. He's very quick. He's very athletic. I've always been a fan of his game. Josh Sweat is also very good. Andrew Wiley will have his hands full there. I suspect they'll match up Hassan Reddick on Orlando Brown for the most part because I think that's probably the best matchup if you're the Eagles coaching staff. So the tackles will be the spot to watch.
I couldn't have said it better. I think this is going to be a game in which Orlando Brown Jr. and Andrew Wiley are going to have to step up. Those 2 guys are going to be asked to do a lot. And listen, the Chiefs' offensive line has the pieces to stop the Eagles. Now, I understand the Eagles are one of, if not, they probably are the best pass rush in football. I mean, in terms of sacks, they led the league in sacks. I mean, as you mentioned, as I mentioned, they had 4 guys that had double-digit sack totals. That's unheard of. That is unbelievable. And it's going to be difficult, but it's the Super Bowl. Nobody said it was going to be easy. And if we look back at some of the previous Super Bowl experiences with, Stefan Wisniewski at guard and Austin Ryder at center, and then at one point Mike Remmers was at left tackle in 2020. So this Chiefs offensive line is the best geared towards stopping an opposing team's pass rush. So from that aspect, I'm more confident going into this game. But you could also say that this is the best pass rush, the best pure pass rush the Chiefs have faced. So that is another reason to be concerned. But we talked about how good they were during the regular season. I think they were the 3rd ranked offensive line in football. They should be able to at least minimize the damage. That's really all I expect. I don't expect them to completely lock up that Eagles pass rush, but Mahomes can't be getting sacked 4 or 5 times or being hit like 9 or 10 times. That would be the worst case scenario because his health, I mean, granted, he's still got that high ankle sprain, but his health in this game is going to be pivotal. If he gets hurt, if he gets knocked down, the Chiefs are going to have a hard time to win. So, yeah, the trench game in this Super Bowl is going to be costly, and I think that the Chiefs are geared towards stopping it. The question is going to be, are our guys better than your guys?
Yeah, it's really interesting because the Chiefs' offensive line is probably the best one that they've had going into a Super Bowl, but this is also probably the best defensive line that they faced in the Super Bowl when it comes to talent. So they're going to have their hands full. Now, I mentioned as well in the video that I'm making before I hopped on to record with you tonight about the Eagles' defensive line, that we can have doubts about the Eagles because we don't think they've faced very many good offenses or very many good quarterbacks. But when you look at the defensive line specifically, you can't really say that because no matter who they've played, they've gotten pressure. Even the Cowboys game with the Cowboys and Dak Prescott put up 40, they still sacked Dak Prescott 6 times. When they played Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, they sacked Aaron Rodgers 3 times.
Yikes. And I think it's because they have so much depth. Anybody could hurt us. It could be Hassan Reddick. It could be Josh Sweat. Maybe it's Fletcher Cox or Javon Hargrave. They've just got so many different guys. Robert Quinn, the linebacker. So many different guys that could hurt you that the Chiefs are going to have to be on their toes. And one aspect that, we haven't mentioned yet, Jerick McKinnon's blocking ability is going to be pivotal in this game. I mean, on third down, when they might try to send the house, he's going to have to pick up the right pass rusher and just find a way to stay in front of him and not let him get beat. Because I think that, in third and long or in any important situation where you need an extra blocker, Jerick McKinnon is going to be that guy. And I'm confident in his ability, but I think the Chiefs are going to have to utilize him quite a bit. I remember back in that 2020 Super Bowl, the one thing that kind of pissed me off about that game plan is even when Pat was getting hit play after play, they never chipped with a tight end. They never decided to keep Clyde back as a blocker. They kind of just were stuck in their ways. And I think that, listen, I mean, having a guy chip or an extra blocker wouldn't have changed the outcome of that game, but they didn't really show any signs or any plans on adjusting. So I think it's important that, you have an extra blocker, whether it's Jerick McKinnon or you bring in Blake Bell or Noah Gray as an extra big body blocker. But I really do think the Eagles are going to give us about as much as we can handle, especially at the tackle position. So just having a guy that could kind of back up and help one of the tackles, it's going to be pretty pivotal.
Yeah, Jerick McKinnon is basically a 6th offensive lineman. And I think you're going to have to throw him back there a lot, especially because Mahomes still isn't going to be quite 100% in this game. He still has an ankle injury. I know when everyone's kind of forgotten about it because the Chiefs beat the Bengals just a week removed from that ankle injury that he sustained versus the Jaguars, but it's still going to be something that he's dealing with. And the Eagles defensive line, you don't want to take any chances. And I think they will be using Jerick McKinnon a lot as a blocker back there next to Patrick Mahomes. And I think you'll see some chips with the tight ends. And I think you'll see a lot of usage of the tight ends and a lot of 13 personnel and that sort of thing, especially because the Chiefs have all their tight ends healthy. I mean, they can use whoever they want, Noah Gray, Jody Fortson, Travis Kelce. So the Chiefs will have to be unique in the way that they deal with the Eagles pass rush.
I couldn't agree more. And, I kind of have a question for you. What do you think is the magic number? Do you think that there is a specific amount of sacks or pressures that would just be too much for the Chiefs to overcome?
I don't think there's – well, okay. I think you want to try to keep it at 3. If you're getting sacked more than 3 times, that's really going to hurt you. And we know the Chiefs offense is good enough that they can overcome being sacked here and there. And if Mahomes is getting brought down a few times, okay, that's just the result of facing a great pass rush like the Eagles. But if we're getting up to 4 or 5, 6 sacks, I mean, you're starting to lose drives when that you could be scoring points on.
Yeah, I think 3 or 4 is going to be that magic number. And honestly, something that is going to be more costly than sacks is the pressures. If they only have 3 or 4 sacks, but they just can't touch him on any other play, I think that's a big advantage for the Chiefs. But I mean, if they're getting to him every single play and knocking him down after the play, I mean, that's going to weigh on Pat. And he's great and he can overcome stuff, but don't give him extra obstacles that he has to work through when his offensive line, an offensive line that has been bolstered with talent for these kind of games, is relied upon to do their job. And I have confidence that they can do their job. They've never faced a pass rush like this. And I understand that, there's some extra motivation for guys like Orlando Brown Jr. to perform well in this game. I mean, listen, Josh, if Orlando Brown Jr. has the game of his life and locks up, whether it's Hassan Reddick or Josh Sweat or whoever they put on him, maybe it's Brandon Graham, he's going to get paid. He might see the same kind of money that the Chiefs offered him in the offseason that he turned down, which if you would have told me that weeks ago, I thought you're crazy. But I think that just shows you how much is riding on this game from a financial standpoint for OBJ.
Yeah, not just OBJ, but a lot of players. But of course, we highlight OBJ because we're talking about the offensive line. This is where, I mean, you mentioned it in the video we did last night. This is where legacies are made. This is where, people start to form narratives about you, how you perform in the Super Bowl, how you perform in the biggest game of the year. And if Orlando Brown can have a really good game in the biggest game of the year, that'll leave a lasting impression on the Chiefs front office, I'm sure. And they'll circle back around to negotiations.
Winning solves everything. Frank Clark is a perfect example of that. The Chiefs won one Super Bowl, gave that man $100 million before the season, and yeah, we've complained here and there, but he's still on the team. So yeah, winning really does solve a lot of financial situations. And I mean, you gave Joe Tooney a bunch of money in free agency a couple of years ago, and you drafted Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith fairly high in the draft. Not Trey Smith, but Creed Humphrey pretty high in the draft. So you've spent a lot of resources to produce in these kind of big games. And I think the Chiefs offensive line has the talent. It's really going to come down to schematics. Do the Chiefs put their guys in the best position to succeed? And that's really, I mean, if you want to talk about what the game boils down to, but I want to see, I guess, Coach Heck put his guys in the right position to succeed. Having a sixth blocker in Jerick McKinnon, maybe block on a couple snaps early on in a drive. Just make sure that they know that he has their back, because I really do think that, if you can kind of settle in early and stop the Eagles right away, I mean, once you get going on in a game, guys get tired and that starts to wear on you. So I expect it to kind of break down a little bit towards the end of the game. But if you can be rock solid for like 2 or 3 quarters, I mean, that's all Pat needs. I mean, historically, when he has a healthy offensive line, he wins Super Bowls. He has never lost a Super Bowl with a healthy offensive line.
Yeah, that is true. I also think that this game is very important for Brett Veach and kind of that perspective. I don't want to say that the Chiefs lose this game in large part due to the offensive line, that Brett Veach should be crucified or anything. He's probably the last person we should be talking about after we had 4 rookies in the secondary basically carry us through the AFC Championship game. He drafted a bunch of day 3 guys that were big factors in that game. Like, Brett Veach deserves his flowers, and he's done a great job building this team. But if you're 2 years removed from your offensive line teardown and rebuild, and you're back in the Super Bowl and you lose kind of in the exact same fashion that you lost the 2020 Super Bowl, that's going to be a bad look. So the offensive line also needs to play well in this game for Brett Veach's sake. I mean, this is the offensive line you supposedly rebuilt. You don't want to see them getting abused again in the Super Bowl. It would not be good. It would not bode well for Brett Veach. Even though he's done a lot of great things, it would kind of make you question if he can truly fix this offensive line to where they can win a Super Bowl.
It's funny that you say that, because I still think that there's a large portion of Chiefs fans that don't really give Brett Veach's flowers and kind of just say, oh, John Dorsey drafted everybody and Brett Veach inherited that team. And yeah, he made the final moves, but he didn't have to build the team that won the whole thing. If this offensive line goes out and balls and the Chiefs win this game, I think that Brett Veach is towards the top of the list of guys you can give credit for because I mean, we mentioned it. All of the rookies that were starting in the secondary, you've got a 7th-round draft pick starting at running back in the Super Bowl, a rookie. Like, what he's been able to do in the later rounds, even with the offensive line drafting, has been fantastic. And I'm not trying to shift the topic of this video, but yeah, I mean, we're going to have to look at this offensive line from a Brett Veach drafting perspective because these are all his guys. Like, there's nobody on this team. I guess, was Andrew Wiley on the team with John Dorsey as the GM?
No.
He wasn't?
No.
Well, then this is entirely his offensive line. So I think that it's important that, you know, for his sake.
Okay, real quick. I mean, not to like, I know I can't remember for certain if Andrew Wiley was like on the practice squad or not back then. He did not start though at any point when John Dorsey was the GM. He didn't play. I don't even think he was on the active roster at any point when John Dorsey was the GM.
To tell you the truth, I don't really know where Andrew Wiley came from. He just kind of appeared one day and was solid. Like I don't remember where we got him, if we drafted him or where he came from, but isn't that wild that Andrew Wiley is your starting right tackle for this game? The biggest game on the biggest stage, and Andrew Wiley is your starting right tackle.
Yeah, I don't want to get too negative, but it's like how bad is Lucas Niang? I mean, Wiley's been solid, but man, they drafted Lucas Niang in the top 100, and he can't seem to beat out Andrew Wiley.
Yeah, and I don't want to slander Andrew Wiley because he's been really solid, and I think that you can go into this game and win this game with Andrew Wiley as your starting right tackle. But he just doesn't have the talent that most of the other guys on your offensive line do. And right. I think that they might try to target Andrew Wiley in this game. So it's important that, again, you have a backup blocker or somebody that can kind of help him out if things get tough, because that's another thing. The Chiefs offensive line is so good on the interior that they can kind of make up for some of their shortcomings and weaknesses on the outsides. Because when you have Joe Thuney coming over to help Orlando Brown Jr., and you got Trey Smith kind of backing up Andrew Wiley, it makes it a lot easier to kind of mask your tackle deficiencies.
Yeah, exactly. And the tackles are going to have to rely on their interior a little bit to help them out too. I mean, maybe coming over and helping out on the edge with the Eagles edge rush. And then, of course, that's where somebody like Jerick McKinnon will come into play. He's just going to have to block whoever the free rusher is.
I couldn't agree more. That's what he's going to have to do. He's just going to have to pick up the blitz, pick up whoever is trying to take out Pat. And I really do think that this Chiefs offensive line is poised to step up, rise to the challenge, and at least hold back the Eagles pass rush. They're not going to shut it down. That's unrealistic, but 2 or 3 sacks and not as many pressures. And if that's the case, the Chiefs win this game.
Yeah, I agree for the most part. I keep it to around 3 sacks. I think you're looking good, and it just hopefully the sacks aren't too devastating and they don't, result in a turnover or a turnover on downs or anything like that. I think it'll be all right.
I think the Chiefs will be just fine. So, Josh, I think that we hit everything right on the head. Do you have anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I will add that I was eating cookies and cream ice cream while we were recording this. Just thought the fans should know.
Well, I'm glad that you were enjoying yourself because I was not. I'm actually scrolling to see if LeBron broke the all-time scoring record. Not that I really care, but I just know that Josh loves LeBron so much that he would want to be informed when he does indeed break the record.
No, I'm good, actually.
All right, Josh, my final question for you is where can the people find you?
You can find me here on YouTube. Just my name, Josh Fan. Check out my work on showmefootball.com and arrowheadaddict.com. And you can follow me on Twitter at showmefb. And you can follow my personal at ChiefandSD if you want to see a bunch of LeBron hate.
All that stuff will be linked in the description of this video. As for me, you guys can find me on YouTube, obviously KC Sports Report. If you're watching this video and you're not subscribed, what are you doing? Hit that subscribe button. Go check out the website, kcsportsreport.com. The social medias, Instagram, KC_Sports Report, and Twitter at KC Sports Report. Until next time, guys, thank you for watching this video, and go Chiefs.